Hi everyone, you are watching a series of The Beginner's Guide to Scotch Whisky. If you missed the previous episodes, you can follow the links in the description below to watch the previous videos. Once again, if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button to support my YouTube channel. Thank you. Welcome to episode number 4 of The Beginner's Guide to Scotch Whisky. If you have been drinking Scotch whisky for a while, wait, then you might not be watching this video since it's called The Beginner's Guide to Scotch Whisky. Okay, let us try that again. If you have drank Scotch whisky with your older relatives, parents, uncles, aunties, and older friends, you might hear the name of the distillery, Macallan. If you want me to describe Macallan Distillery, I will refer to the automobile maker, B&W. That's right, Macallan whiskey is like the B&W in Scotch whisky. It has outstanding quality, distinctive characters, and it's one of the most valuable whiskey brands for collectors. For many years, Macallan has forged its reputation based on its sherry taste, and its parent company, Edrington, is one of the biggest players in the sherry cask trade, not just in Scotland, but out in Spain too. That's right, in this episode, we are going to talk about the ex-sherry cask of Scotch whisky. So, what exactly is ex-sherry cask? You might be guessing it right. It is the Scotch whisky matured in an oak barrel that was used to mature the Spanish sherry wine. Let's talk about what is Spanish sherry wine. Sherry is a fortified wine that is made using white wine grapes and blended with brandy with a long history from southern Spain. It's a high alcohol wine produced in a variety of styles, from dry to sweet and light to intense. The most common types of sherry wine that are later being used as sherry cask to mature Scottish whiskies are Oloroso, Amontillado, and Pedro Ximénez, or short for PX. Here, I have a bottle of Oloroso sherry on the table. It's dark in color and rich in flavor. Oloroso can be sweet or dry. Oloroso typically has a remarkable walnut aroma and a caramel flavor. Secondly, Amontillado is an off-dry sherry, has a deeper brown color and a hazelnut aroma with a lovely nutty flavor. Lastly, Pedro Ximénez, PX, is an ultra-sweet, almost syrup-like dessert sherry made from sun-dried grapes of the same name. PX has a flavor profile that leans towards toffee and molasses. It's also used to sweeten other types of sweet sherry. Sherry is aged in a so-called Solera system, a collection of American oak casks arranged by the age of the sherry inside those casks. When sherry is bottled, it is taken from a group of oldest casks which are ever completely emptied. Those are then topped up with the sherry wine from the next oldest age group, and so on down the line. Let's get to the point of the episode with our topic, ex-sherry cask for Scotch whisky. Most whiskey drinkers assume the sherry casks that are used to mature their whiskey are taken from the Solera system. That's not the case though. Solera casks are decades, often even centuries old. Solera casks are incredibly precious. As a rule, the only reason one will be removed from the system is because it was broken. The Solera casks are soaked and exhausted. It is harder to obtain the oak flavor from the casks, which is exactly the way sherry producers like it. Unlike sherry producers, whiskey distillers do want to add the effects and flavors from the oak cask. Therefore, Solera casks are no good to them. Before 1986, sherry wine used to be shipped from Spain to UK in transport casks. The transport casks were not the same as Solera casks. Most of the time, they were relatively young casks made of cheaper local European oak. Often, they would have been used a few times for the fermentation of the young sherry wine. After the fermentation process, they were filled with the mature sherry wine from the Solera system and shipped to UK. The overseas journey and the selling process probably took a few extra weeks or months, which means the transport cask has been soaked with mature sherry before they were used in the whiskey industry. After the barrels were emptied, easily a dozen liters of sherry wine has been absorbed into the wood's pores. In 1986 and onwards, Spanish law dictates that all of its wine has to be bottled in Spain, which meant there were no transport casks available. As a result, whiskey distillers had to switch to other alternatives. One solution was discussed in my previous episode, was the switch to American bourbon barrels. But some whiskey companies want to protect their unique sherry cask flavor profile, so they had no choice but to get into the sherry cask business themselves. Adrington Group, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the owner of the Macallan and the Highland Park distilleries, has agreements with Spanish sherry producers who create customized sherry casks for them. Those are widely known as seasoned sherry casks, can be made from American oak or European oak. The casks are seasoned with sherry from 2 to sometimes 5 years before being shipped to Scotland. The big difference between the oak transport cask and the modern seasoned sherry cask is the type of the sherry wine. Mature, ready for bottling sherry would have been inside a transport cask. The sherry used to season modern cask is relatively young and no longer qualified as sherry wine after, so they are often distilled into brandy or used to make sherry vinegar later. If you want to try the ex-sherry cask type of Scotch whiskey, you can try these bottles on the table as they are great bottles of ex-sherry cask whiskey for beginners. A GlenDronach, 12 years old. A Glenrothes, 12 years old. A Macallan, 12 years old, sherry oak cask. The Glenfarclas, 21 years old. Let's give Macallan 12 years old sherry oak cask a try and find out how it tastes like. From the bottle, the label shows single sherry oak cask. When you go to a liquor store, you will see Macallan has single cask, double cask, and a triple cask between 12 years old to 18 years old. From what I know, the single cask means it's sherry seasoned cask made from European oak from Spain. And the double cask are sherry seasoned cask made from European oak from Spain and American white oak. Lastly, the triple cask means the 2 sherry seasoned European and American oaks plus the American bourbon cask. So the triple cask are a type of sherry and bourbon cask blended whiskey. From the nosing, I can pick up some dry fruit aroma, such as raisins, cranberries, and a bit of vanilla and a signature wood oaky smell that I can only find from Macallan. From the palate, I can definitely taste the raisins, chocolate, and prunes flavors. The finish is sweet, medium, well balanced. I love this bottle. In my opinion, this is the benchmark for an entry-level ex-sherry cask Scotch. An absolute pleasure to drink. Remember, next time when you do whiskey tasting, you can now easily pick up the essential notes of an ex-sherry cask, such as raisins, chocolates, dry fruits, grapefruits, prunes, and nutty. Thank you for watching this episode number 4 on the ex-sherry cask. And in the next episodes, I will talk about other type of casks which are starting to pick up the trend to mature Scotch whiskey. Cheers!